Is a fully healthy Spurs squad plus adding a number 2 pick push the Spurs into a win now mode?
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Spurs. We're here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Ken's 5 San Antonio. Glad to have y'all back. Hope you're having a great day. And as always, we thank y'all for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. Free and available wherever you get podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Ken's 5 Plus app, YouTube. You know where to go. Go subscribe right now. By the way, if you go to the Locked On Spurs YouTube page, leave a comment. You may read it in the future episode like this one later on in this episode. Hey, what are we talking about today? We're going to be looking at the Spurs heading into next season. And basically, if they are kind of already in a win now mode mindset, you know, the concept here is, well, you're going to likely have a healthy Wemby, a healthy Fox. You're going to bring in a number 2 pick if they keep it. And that player obviously should be an impact player. So you threw us all together and you're like, well, shouldn't this team already be good enough to win now? We're going to be talking about that and so much more. And yes, getting into your Locked On Spurs fan comments later on in this episode. Guys, you guys are the everydayers. Keep coming here every single day. All right, let's go to bring in our guest. He is back, everybody. My good friend, Hector Ledesma, the man, the myth, the legend. Make sure to follow him on all the socials, Hector Ledesma TV. You even got a new YouTube show. Is that correct?
Yeah, thank you, man. And yeah, it's called the Sports Update YouTube. We do it weekly. Try to focus on local. And Jeff, remember when the Spurs used to be quote unquote boring?
Yeah.
That this offseason, they have been anything but boring in terms of the release headlines. So it's been fun in that the news around the Spurs has not stopped. If anything, it's increased since they played their last game.
Absolutely. By the way, your new sports show on YouTube, pretty good. And when I mean, and when he means, and he says that is local, it is local. Yeah, I think in a recent episode had a local focus on boxing, the boxing world of San Antonio. Thought that was pretty cool. I think even a big boxing press conference coming to San Antonio, right?
Yeah, the card itself is coming on August 23rd. It's supposed to have some undefeated, good, young, up-and-coming fighters. Justin Figueroa, Isaac Baramea. Hardcore boxing fans will know the names. But guys like Errol Spence and Zab Judah are supposed to be there in attendance to kind of take in that reaction as well. So it's supposed to be a lot of fun. Techport, August 23rd. They're still getting details lined up for rounding out the card. But and I don't think tickets are available just yet because we're so far out. But August 23rd is the date.
See, that's why you got to follow Hector on social media, especially X at Hector Ledesma TV. There you can see all the links to the YouTube show, sports shows. A really good show. Go check that out right now. All right, Hector, let's get down to business right here. So I spoke to you before we hit the record button to kind of give you the idea of where I'm coming from with this topic here. So as I said in the intro, Hector, this is a Spurs team that, should be coming into the new season fully healthy. No more blood clots for Wemby. Fox got his finger repaired, surgery. You have Castle coming in, sophomore season. It should be pretty good. We're coming off a very stellar rookie campaign. You're going to add a number 2 pick, which might be Dylan Harper if the Spurs keep the pick. And you forget, too, Hector, you still got guys like Harrison Barnes, Sohan, Keldon, Devin. Their bench, that depth may be pretty good. Wouldn't you think on paper this team should already be, screw this rebuild. We're ready to win right now. Isn't that the idea? Because if that's the case, Hector, then what's all this buzz about? Oh, no, they still need to improve the wing. They still need to improve the big man. Oh, they got to go chasing Giannis. But I think on paper, they should already be a win now mode team. What do you think?
I don't think so, Jeff.
Okay.
I honestly think that the argument for not chasing a Giannis or a Durant is that you keep the core together and you let them grow.
Sure.
And then you see what they'll be a couple years from now. And when I say a couple, maybe even as recently as the year after this coming season. So like the 26-27 season. But I don't think anybody would argue that you don't need to get Giannis or Durant because you're ready to contend for championships now. With Dylan Harper added to the mix they currently have. And that's my definition of, are you ready to win now? Not like are you going to make the playoffs as a 6 seed? what I make win now synonymous with long playoff runs.
Sure.
Let me put it to you this way, Jeff, and you're more than welcome to answer this.
Sure.
It's more kind of a thinking question for all your viewers. Let me ask you guys this: if Wemby and De'Aaron don't get hurt, and don't get shut down, because Fox was already hurt, right? He was just dealing with it.
Sure.
If they don't get shut down, do you guys honestly think that the Spurs, as constructed, make the play in? I think a lot of you will say yes, they would have made the play in, right? They would have made the play. They would have finished top 10. Okay. Can you see them having gotten out of the play in and actually into the playoffs?
Yeah.
That's where it kind of gets iffy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you've got a team that's 8 seed, 7 seed caliber. You're adding a rookie who, as wonderfully talented and gifted as Dylan Harper is, we've seen the low impact on the win margins that even the most effective rookies have in these last 2 years with Wemby and Castle. As phenomenal as Vic was his rookie year, they won as many games with him in his rookie year as they did the year before without him. Stephon Castle, yes, he helped them win 12 more games, but it was also because they brought in Chris Paul, Harrison Barnes. Vic was a year better. Sure. So it wasn't like Stephon Castle was the only reason they won 12 more wins. My point is this: how many more wins is adding Dylan Harper plus Steph being a year better plus Vic being a year better? What does that translate to? Do you go from you'll go from 34 wins to 40, 41, or you maybe around the 500 mark, right? Is that realistic to say? You'll finish 41 to 31, 42 and 40 and 42, right in that area. 8 seed, 7 seed, fighting for a playoff, fighting for a postseason spot all the way through. Does that fit the definition of win now?
Yeah. No. Yeah. And I look at the Spurs and their situation right now, again, as of this recording, the roster constructed right now, I think it will be good enough to get into the play-in next season. Again, obviously, if they stay healthy and they get in, all right, so that's good. But beyond that, I guess what I'm trying to get Hector isn't the bar is so low right now, isn't it? The Spurs make the play-in, and that's already going to push not only just the fan base, maybe the players, the staff. I mean, you read a report via ESPN that a Spurs exec said, "Oh, we're back, baby." Okay, but what is back though? Back to getting to 500? Back to at least making the play-in? So I think that's where I struggle with this. If they are already going to be in win now mode next season, is it maybe a bit too early? I think, but a healthy Wemby, you got to figure, because he hasn't had a full season, has he? At least close to it. He got shut down early. His rookie season was they stopped him with short. Again. I would like to see what this team can do with Wemby playing as close to a full season as he can do. Castle, Fox, how that chemistry is going to go. And for Hector, we got to talk about this too. Maybe we should pause for a break here and think about this too. Would helping the Spurs into a win now mode kind of hinge on how other West teams are shaping up into next season? So we'll just talk about that when we get back right here with Hector Ledesma. Make sure to follow him on X at Hector Ledesma TV. You want to do that ASAP. But first, I want to talk to you about Open Phone. Hey, I want to talk to you about Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. You thinking about the last time you had an urgent need? Yeah, maybe you needed a plumber, or maybe a service for your provider. I don't know, whatever you needed, but you didn't answer the call. Hey, if that person didn't answer, you might have lost out on some money. So don't wait. You want to get Open Phone right now. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system to build, and not only just to build your business around, but to streamline and scale your customer communications all on an app from your phone or computer. They got an AI agent that handles after-hour calls, answers common questions, captures leads. You never miss a customer. Open Phone lets you manage businesses, calls, and texts from a single app. You got to share the inbox, which is basically a game changer. Your team can jump to any conversation instantly without missing a beat. Open Phone right now is offering listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's phone.com/lockedonnba. And if you have existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Hey, we're back right here on Locked On Spurs, joined by my good friend Hector Ledesma TV. Make sure to follow him on X at Hector Ledesma TV. You want to do that right now, ASAP. You don't want to get him angry. I see him when he gets angry. He's like the Hulk. He just gets all angry. I don't have another follower. He just rips his shirt off and going, you got to get my follower count up. Make sure to do that right now. By the way, he also has a great sports show on YouTube. He'll talk about that in just a few minutes. So we're talking about the Spurs heading into the new season. On paper, they should be pretty good, right? I mean, you think about it, everybody. Wemby fully at 100%, or at least close to it. Castle second season. They're going to add a number 2 pick. Their bench could get even stronger if they decide to have the sell. I mean, there's so many parts here that are moving that are looking like the Spurs could get some W's, making them a win now mode. But yeah, maybe not, as Hector mentioned in the first segment, and I'm kind of wavering about right now. But what could help the Spurs, Hector, is the outlook, I guess the landscape of the Western Conference. So many pieces are moving right now. Phoenix seems to be kind of putting their hands up and say, all right, let's just blow this up.
Phoenix is a blue.
Yeah. There's that. You don't know what's going to happen with the Clippers. Mainly, will Kawhi be available? That could hurt them. And Harden doesn't look the same.
Plus the
road. Yeah. So, and Denver seems to be maybe on a slide coming down. But how much does the landscape of the West, Hector, impact the Spurs having kind of a win now season? It's pretty easy to take advantage of maybe some teams kind of sliding down.
That's a great question, right? Because well, here's the thing is for the last several years, we've looked at the West as being stacked, right? Like, oh my goodness, 1 through 6, let's say. For example, the T-Wolves this year were a 6 seed, right? Mm-hmm. So you go 1 through 6, it wouldn't surprise anybody if any one of those teams made the finals.
Sure.
I think we're about to enter a period, and this probably isn't gonna, a lot of you are gonna be like, well, yeah, duh, that's kind of obvious. We're about to enter a stretch here where the Thunder is set to dominate the West for a bit. Mm. Or at least 1, 2, 3, every single year. Houston is still Houston. I still think they need the guy. They need a guy as opposed to what they've been rolling out with a bunch of good young players the last couple of years, plus a couple of vets. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Denver, right? I don't think while Denver needs to make some adjustments in order to be dominant again, they're going to be at least contending for a while, right? And so you look at everybody else and you go, the Spurs can make a move, given that after those teams, it kind of opens up, right? Because we thought Dallas was going to be set up for a while, and now it's going to take them a while to get back. You fully anticipate they're going to get Cooper Flag, and they'll be relevant again in a couple of years, but not this coming year, not probably the year after that either. So it's a wide open West for the first time in a long time, in terms of being able to finish near the top of the conference, because Oklahoma City is probably going to sit atop the perch there for a little while.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you also look at Dallas as well. Kyrie Irving is not coming back to late in the season, if at all, with his injury.
Yeah, like Arch.
Yeah. So they're good. I mean, on paper, again, they have a pretty good team, but the point is the window was a little open for the Spurs to make a move and become a win now kind of vibe throughout the franchise because of the opportunities that presented themselves. Now, you've been hearing all the chatter, Hector, KD Spurs, Giannis Spurs, this and that right now. First of all, do you think that would then push the Spurs into a win now situation if they do make a deal for a KD or a Giannis?
Yes, and that's why I struggled with this on the sports update. I haven't. I'm open about it when we discuss it on the show. About I don't know. I haven't planted my flag as to I think they should go this way, because I see both sides. And to the crux of your original question, Jeff, is that's what gives me pause about it, because if I thought the Spurs could contend, I mean, like deep playoff run contend next year, what they have plus Dylan Harper, I would say, you know what? Yes, you don't need Giannis. You don't need talk about bringing in a 36 or by the time the season starts, a 37-year-old Kevin Durant. You don't need any of that. But you add Giannis, and automatically Giannis, Vic, De'Aaron Fox.
Good Lord.
Let's assume that you don't have to give up Stephon Castle because you're giving up Dylan Harper and a bunch of picks. Giannis, Vic, Castle, and Fox. That might be the second best team in the West next year, right?
Yeah.
Like Minnesota's still got AE, and they're still wonderfully talented indeed. But I think what we saw this year is they need an upgrade at point guard. God bless him, but Mike Conley's not the guy anymore, right? Like, not what he.
Yeah.
You look at the teams that were young and up and coming for the last couple of years have kind of faded back. The Grizzlies have faded back. The Kings have come back to the pack. Like these teams, and the other teams that are kind of like the West mainstays, kind of like we mentioned with the Clippers, the Lakers, the Nuggets, they're getting older. So you look at really in terms of youth and trajectory, it's the Thunder and it's the Rockets, and right now the Thunder are clearly heads above the Rockets, and for that matter, anybody else in the West. So that foursome that we just named with the Spurs, including Giannis, is already, I think, probably better than the Rockets.
Yeah.
The question then becomes, is that worth it? Is that worth it considering Giannis is 30 and 3 to 4 years from now, you would think he's not going to be Giannis anymore, right?
Yeah.
Does that traject better than what if Dylan Harper really is with what a lot of people think, including experts, think Dylan Harper's going to become? You just gave that up for a 3 to 4 year window potentially. You know what I'm saying? So when Vic and Castle are as young as they are too, and oh, by the way, De'Aaron Fox is still only 27. So
that's right.
For me, that's what makes this so hard. Is I'm not comfortable saying either one definitively. I'm not comfortable saying it doesn't matter about the future because Giannis gives you a chance at 3 championships over the next 5 years. I don't know that. We think that, but we don't know. And then what happens after those 5 years? What happens to the baton? What happens with the baton? Does it then transition? A la, the Big Dave to Tony and Tim baton handling, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you just stay as is and you draft Dylan Harper by next season, are you already winning 55, 56 games and in the conference finals? That's kind of conceivable too. So
it's just something. Again, I do struggle. I mean, I don't really struggle too much with the Giannis thing. Look, if Giannis and the Spurs and Bucks, Spurs, whatever, they make a deal, and yes, it is a good one for both sides. I mean, it's hard to say no to be honest. It's hard. I mean, how do you tell? How do you do that? How do you look at a Giannis and the Bucks and the Spurs? They agree to something, and you don't bring a generational talent to San Antonio. That's just difficult to do. And yes, maybe he only gives you about 4 or 5 years, of prime Giannis. That's 4 or 5 years of prime Giannis. That's still pretty good.
True.
Yeah.
While Vic is on the ascension and on his way to becoming what Vic's going to become.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
No, you're right.
Exactly.
I mean, it's interesting, Jeff, because when you talk about it out loud, it makes it seem more no-brainer to bring in Giannis than it really is, if that makes any sense. It's the lingering in the back of your head. Yeah, but that kind of like, what's the price? Like what price? Like, because you're going to have to pay a hefty price. I mean, the Bucks are probably going to play hardball this summer and say, Spurs, you want a deal? You got to get both the number 2 pick and Castle. That's their starting point. Their starting point is going to be we want Stephon Castle in any trade that involves Giannis. Period.
Yeah.
We could talk. Yes, the number 2 pick is going to be a part of it, but if you're the Bucks, why would you not say, fully understanding that Vic is untouchable, right? And Stephon might be untouchable too, but you still at least say that's your starting point. If you're the Bucks, Stephon Castle. That's it. Like, give a step on, and then everything else goes from there. Not that's it in terms of that's it, obviously. It's not a 1-for-1, but that's it in terms of he's the starting point. If there's no Stephon Castle, we don't have a jumping off point to the continued discussions.
Right.
If I'm the Bucks, that's exactly what I'm doing. And then you hope that Giannis doesn't force your hand as you go through the process. Yeah. So then it becomes a matter of price. Like, if you're the Spurs, do you give up Castle, the 2, the 14, and multiple picks going forward, as well as a salary filler, or 2? Like, what's that look like? So it's not just as simple as Giannis is a free agent, let's just make a run at him, and that's what makes this intriguing. But on the other side of it, it seems like even if the Spurs don't get, I shouldn't say even, if the Spurs don't get Giannis, they're still in pretty decent shape, especially
they are.
If Dylan Harper turns out to be, I've heard some guys who really know ball say that Harper's going to be a better pro than Castle.
Wow.
Yeah, like so you look at that and you're like, you're going to give up those 2 guys for Giannis, or even one, Dylan, or what Harper could be for Giannis. So it's again. I'll finish off by saying what I said a little while ago. When you talk about it out loud, it's like, well, yeah, why would you not bring in Giannis? Yeah. It's kind of those when you start thinking and maybe even possibly overthink that you kind of maybe get back off that side of things, that maybe they shouldn't pull the trigger.
Yeah, what you said right now, that reminded me of. I mean, obviously, you didn't know Shea was going to be SGA, but I mean, the Clippers, pretty much mortgaged that away, and look what Shea's become, and look where Paul George is no longer with the Clippers. He's now in Philadelphia, and they're a shell of himself. So that's what it feels like with Harper. Are the Spurs going to give up an asset like that for their version of Paul? Now, granted, Giannis is way better, than Paul George. But the point is, you don't want to look down the road and be like, wow,
right,
bye-bye Giannis, and look at Dylan Harper thriving in Milwaukee, becoming their base.
Because also, Jeff, because at the end of the day, too, is like, I'm a big fan of thinking long term, right? And I didn't even touch on this a little while ago, but like, let's say if you trade for Giannis this season, you got him for 2 more years under contract, then he's going to look for the he's still going to be only 32. So here comes the next big super max contract. They're more than likely going to try to sign him there. So, but 2 or 3 years into that next contract, he'll probably kind of fade off and he won't be what he's been, right? Okay. So over these next 5 years, let's say you add Giannis this summer, over the next 5 years, you win 2 championships. Okay. Giannis, then whatever, 5 years from now, he's no longer in San Antonio, whatever. We're playing with kind of long-term, hard to tell hypotheticals, right? You transition and you still have Vic, and you're building around Vic, but as they transition the pieces around Vic, they go another several years without a championship. If you look at the next 8 years and you go, you know what, adding Giannis got us 2 championships over in an 8-year span, great. But we gave up a guy equivalent to Shea because Dylan Harper ends up on a team and helps them to long playoff runs. And you look at that and you go, had we stayed pat, could we have had 3 or 4 championships over that 8-year span as opposed to 2? And now we're transitioning as opposed to Vic, Harper, Fox, and Castle. That's it. You just try to manage the salaries best you can, but that's your team for the next, or at least, it's realistic to say you're going to keep all 4 of them for long. Well, and that's where Fox's age, him being a little bit older than the rest of them, maybe helps that contract and that future foresight, right? But the point is, you don't have to worry, contracts aside, you don't have to worry about the long-term viability because you're locked in with those guys.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And with the way the financial structure is now, NBA without the aprons and whatnot, I mean, look what happened in Boston. I mean, that ownership jumped ship in a hurry. They jumped ship
in a hurry.
pay that bill anymore, so they got out. So that's also a factor into whether the Spurs want to start winning now as opposed to prolonging this next season. He is Hector Ledesma. He is with the Sports Update that is on YouTube. More of that in just a few minutes. When we get back, we're going to look at what the Spurs fans are talking about. Yeah, Locked On Spurs fans are leaving a lot of comments. We'll pick two and react to that right here on Locked On Spurs. Hey, I want to talk to you about BetterHelp. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Let's talk about something that doesn't get talked about enough. That is men's mental health. There's this pressure to always keep it together, to perform, to provide, never show weaknesses, right? But the truth is, real strength comes from opening up and taking care of your mental well-being. Each year, 6 million men in the U.S. experience depression, and many go undiagnosed. But talking to someone, a friend, a loved one, or a therapist can make a huge difference. Therapy isn't just for crisis moments. It's also for times where that are good, and you want to keep those good moments flowing. You'll learn how to set boundaries, coping tools, healthy coping tools, I should say, basically just becoming the best version of yourself. With over 35,000 licensed professionals, BetterHelp makes it easy to find a therapist who understands you. You can connect from anywhere, switch therapists at any time, fit sessions into your schedule with just a click. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Look, talk it out. Go to BetterHelp right now. Listeners right now can get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. And we're back right here on Locked On Spurs, joined by Hector Ledesma. He is on X at Hector Ledesma TV. He's also with the Sports Update. More on that later. You might want to get your YouTube page open right now to go subscribe to that show. Just a hint right there, everybody. One thing's for sure, Hector, if I have you on my team, it's win now. It's win now. I got Hector Ledesma on my squad. I got to win now because I don't want to get Hector mad. No, you're the cornerstone franchise piece player there, Hector. And I would hate to do that, man. I would hate to do that. All right.
Stop it.
Let's look at some Locked On Spurs fan comments right now and see what you guys are talking about. Shocking, a lot about the draft, but let's see if we get something here. All right, here's one. So yesterday's Locked On Spurs, Hector, we discussed the recent report via ESPN Sharania that the Spurs are seriously, aggressively looking for another swingman. Got that caught our attention, so we had a discussion about that. Now, one guy that we threw out there that could be that, I guess, upgrade, if you will, was Caris LeVert. So here's what the commentator had to say. Dylan Brown. I will love to see Caris LeVert in the Spurs uniform, but he was traded from Cleveland. And blah, 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 blah. So he goes on about him being a Buckeye, I guess it's a Buckeye thing. So basically what he's saying, Dylan Brown is saying that, yeah, playing in San Antonio would work well for not only LeVert, but for the Spurs to address that swingman, reportedly via Shams upgrade. Obviously not high on the to-do list for the Spurs roster construction. We know what that is, Hector. That is bringing in big men. But what do you think about that report that came out recently that the Spurs are looking for a swingman? Is a guy like LeVert somebody that the Spurs should look at?
LeVert's a good fit. There's several guys like that, though, that fit.
Yeah.
That kind of the ancillary piece, but also kind of somewhat of a difference maker.
Sure.
Right. But you're right, Jeff. I even though the game is positionless to a certain extent, it's still not fully positionless. And all you had to look was at the Spurs rebounding woes at the end of last year, or kind of toward even the tail end of when Vic was still healthy. Even when he was on the floor, they struggled to get rebounds. And I know that may sound really simple, but if this team, outside of the general, they need to get better. Right? Like they need, obviously, talent acquisition, as Bill Parcells would always say, is the name of the game. Under that umbrella, like I think they need to focus in on bigs. Like I get that it's, you can never have enough 3-and-D guys and long rangey guys who can make teams really tough. Make things tough. Excuse me, for other teams, defensively. But you have several guys who, unlike Vic's rookie year, you have guys who can create. You have a De'Aaron Fox. You have a Stephon Castle. If they stay put and they draft Dylan Harper, Harper can create. You have guys who can get you in an offense and get to spots and get their shots whenever they want. And especially with De'Aaron having a full summer camp, full offseason training program, and then obviously his first full season with the Spurs. I don't think that's nearly as big a need as you've got to have somebody either alongside or behind Vic, depending on the lineup they choose to roll out there with, who's going to give you opportunities, who's going to keep the offensive possessions of the other team to a minimum, and is going to give you a shot to run as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Again, we both agreed yesterday on yesterday's show that maybe swingman's not the top priority right now, because you hit it the nail on the head. Harper could be it, and let's not forget they still got Vassell and Keldon. Maybe they're not great 3_and_D guys, but they are, they could be serviceable in a different capacity coming off the bench and filling that void. But nevertheless, no, Karis LeVert was the name we threw out there. I think another name that was thrown out there was Malik Beasley out in Detroit, but really, way Detroit lets him go. No way. They like him there.
Can I offer let me offer this cautionary tale regarding that, Jeff? You brought up the wonderful example earlier of, a real in-time example of what the fear is with trading away Dylan Harper, is that he becomes Shea, right?
Yeah.
Let me give you an in-time example of what I'm thinking when I hear the Spurs need more wing players. Doesn't it seem like outside of Şengün, doesn't it seem like the Rockets, like every other player on the Rockets is like the same guy?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's a problem. Like there's a reason they lost a playoff series that they quote unquote should not have lost. Right? They were the higher seed, easily the higher seed, and yet Golden State beat them. Why? Because the Warriors have guys who can get their shots. Yes, Steph Curry races a lot of faults. Yes, but there's a reason Steph Curry isn't going to the finals this year, right? Sure. But the Warriors with guys, Curry, Jimmy Butler, with Buddy Hield had his moments. With guys, they have a couple of dudes, as opposed to a team where every player on that team is like the same guy. There's a reason when it got down to a playoff series, the Warriors won that matchup. And so I think there's a risk in falling into this positionless basketball. You can never have enough guys who do have this skill set, because then you become the modern day Houston Rockets. And that's not to say the Rockets didn't have a great season. They obviously did, for the top seeds in the West. But when you get into the playoffs, I think it's safe to say that if the Rockets don't pull off like a big move or do something pretty big, they're going to stay like where they are. It's going to be that same trajectory. They need a dude or somebody who's going to, that star going to take the shot, create for everybody, just that guy. Until they get him, I think they're going to keep on meeting the playoff fates they had this past year.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so see what the Spurs fans are talking about, or the Locked On Spurs you today. By the way, I think Spurs fans right now are forcing me to do a future episode on this guy, as far as the draft is concerned, because I hear this name over and over again. Hector, you probably hear it too over at the Sports Update. Maxime Renaud, the French big man. Yeah, that's all I hear. So Spurs fans, you're making me want to do a show on that, but let's talk about it. So this is from Luis Cesar Vargas, 8421. He says the Spurs should go ahead and draft Maxime Renaud. He's a, quote, perfect floor spaces. Draft Maxime Renaud. So what do you think? Look, he's probably going to be a good NBA player, but if I'm the Spurs GM or the War Room right now, I'm not burning a number 14 pick on Maxime. That's where I'm at, with him. He's going to be a good player, but I think Spurs could do better. Even like a Asa Noel, if Queen falls to 14. But, Spurs fans, they love that French connection, man. They see him playing chess with Wemby, he's French, and he's on the offseason with them working out together. What are your thoughts on the big kid from France, Maxime?
Well, I think you hit it on the head. If Maxime's not French, a.k.a., the connection with Vic, are we really talking about him as much as we are?
No,
so
not at all.
So that, not the skill set, although the 7'1" size helps, right?
Sure.
But not the skill set, and I know your viewer right there kind of mentioned how he thought he'd be a perfect floor spacer. but not the skill set in general.
Mm-hmm.
It's the country of origin that really makes it to begin with. And
Sure.
do you want to see the lottery there when there's other ways to go? So
Yes.
it's fun to talk about. It's fun to entertain. You could make the argument that how can the Spurs fit another? What are the Spurs going to do with 14 anyway in terms of somebody who's truly going to make an impact? Which I think is thought process. It's kind of a silly thought process because you can get you're going to get an impact player. You hope at 14. So yeah, all in all, it's a storyline because of something other than basketball, which kind of makes it a little leery.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. But again, I ain't wasting the number 14 pick on Maxine. No offense, Maxine. No offense. Just, I think the Spurs are better suited either draft or packaging that 14 pick. He is Hector Ledesma. He's on X at Hector Ledesma TV. He's also with the Sports Update. Hector, we've been mentioning that throughout the show. Tell us about that. How can fans subscribe? What do y'all got cooking over there?
So it's a YouTube. So go if on YouTube, and thank you for this, Jeff. If you search Sports Update, you'll see we've done about a month and a half worth of shows. We're gonna actually pause in late June, Jeff, because I'm gonna do some traveling throughout the summer, and then we're gonna pick it up in early to mid August, or just in time for the football season.
Nice.
So it works out. But go to YouTube, Sports Update. We talk about all things local, a lot of Spurs talk, and they've given us a lot to talk about even since the season ended. Obviously, local and regional. So we talked about UTSA and Trinity baseball also made the Division III World Series heading into this past weekend. Smith Valley on the state level. We're talking about baseball. They're playing for a state championship. Talk about all that stuff on this most recent show. And you mentioned the boxing card a little earlier. Big boxing coming to San Antonio in late August. So we do all of that in addition to the regional stuff that people in San Antonio would care about, right? So Cowboys, obviously, Texans, UT, A&M, Big 12, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, YouTube, Sports Update. You'll see me. You'll see my buddy Bobby Mendez's face there. We've done, like I mentioned, I think we've done 8 shows to this point. So this week's show coming up is going to be our 9th show. So that's how you can catch it.
Yeah, you also help out with SAFC, is that correct?
Correct. So in working with the Spurs, working with the Spurs, they have me do a lot of FanDuel sports, and because the Spurs own San Antonio FC, and because they're affiliated with the Austin Spurs, I do a lot of play-by-play for either San Antonio FC when they're on the FanDuel network. Likewise for Austin Spurs network games when they're on the FanDuel network. Do a couple of those games as well.
See, there you go. That's where you got to follow Hector ASAP on X at Hector Ledesma TV. And of course, don't forget the Sports Update on YouTube. It's a great show. I tune in. Helps me get through my work day. Just listen to Hector and Bobby just talk about all things sports. By the way, did you see that recent poll ranking via Vegas Insider? The Spurs fan base is one of the most positive when it comes to the Spurs. Have they not seen Spurs Twitter X Wars? Did they not see that? I was shocked. I thought, and by the way, the Spurs fan base is the least vulgar. Again, had they not seen Spurs on fan base on social media,
I gotta be honest. I got to be honest, Jeff, you have a much better temperature for Spurs Twitter than I do. Yeah. I kind of tend to avoid, and this is to my detriment.
Oh, you're better off. You're better off. You're better off.
I kind of try to avoid, not only to be fair to Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it these days. Yeah, sure. I do the same thing with Facebook and Instagram, and I'm on Threads because someone told me a couple years ago, go on Threads because it's going to replace Twitter. That wasn't very prophetic. But the point is I'll go on there. I'll literally go on there, post something, and then get back off the phone. Now, if the Spurs, when it's trade deadline time where something's going on, obviously, I'll see what Shams has going on. So Shams is inevitably going to have something that we are not going to be privy to. Right. Inevitably, he's going to have something there. In addition to the work we do in terms of conversations and reporting and things along those lines, he's so plugged in on the league level that you're dumb not to follow him, even when you do what we do. And so, yes, I'll be on the lookout for that stuff. But otherwise, man, I'll be honest. Like, I kind of don't pay attention to this stuff.
Yeah.
Because you can go down. I learned years ago. You can don't easily go down rabbit holes, and then you want to find yourself like replying to something, and you're like, no, I shouldn't. Blah blah blah. So just to eliminate any of that, I just gotta stay away.
Again, you are way better off. There's some horror stories that I've seen and stuff that, just make your mind be like, oh my God, they actually behave this way on social media. Again, he is Hector Ledesma. Follow him on X at Hector Ledesma TV. Don't forget the sports update. Everybody else, we thank y'all for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. Free and available wherever we get podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Ken's 5 Plus app, YouTube. You know where to go. Make sure you do that ASAP. We'll be back tomorrow. I believe Casey Vieira is coming on tomorrow. So we'll be discussing all things silver and black with Casey. I got a bone to pick with him too. Y'all find out about that tomorrow as well. Actually, it was my fault, but I'm going to blame it on him. All right, everybody. By the way, for your second listen, make sure to go check out the NBA, the Locked On NBA Big Board Show. Draft expert Rafael Barlow reacts to every workout, interview, rumor leading up to the NBA draft. Find Locked On NBA Big Board on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So for Hector Ledesma, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.